Chidanandji, you can unmute and start.
Namaste and good evening, everyone. What is passive awareness? We shall try to understand the significance of this piece of teaching, where passive awareness is advised, its value is shown. Ordinarily, most of us, the humanity, are very attached to being active. I'm not saying we are active. Many a time we find ourselves lazy, but our eyes are set on being active. Many a time we feel guilty that we are not active enough. We feel ashamed that we are lazy. We have a strong notion that we should be doing something. And as we get older, we begin to feel sad. We are not able to run fast, walk fast, or do things fast. Our energy levels fall. And the wisdom of so many mystics makes it very clear. The problem is not that our energy falls, but the problem is we have made it a matter of conflict. We don't accept ourselves when we have low energy. If we get up late one morning, the problem is not that we have got up late. More than that, even if it is a bit of a problem, more than that, we have an image how we must be, that we must get up early, we must be going for a morning walk. So the shoulds and should nots. A diabetic like me takes a bit of a piece of sweet. It may be wrong, I do agree. But more than the wrong that is involved in taking a bit of a piece of sweet, the conditioned mind says, oh, you should not have eaten this. How could you do this? Did you not decide yesterday you would not touch any sweet at all? And so on and so forth. Can you and I realize, can you and I recognize that in our life, in this psychological life, the mind becomes so noisy, clinging to ideas of should and should not. Therefore, long back I came across a book, I do not remember the author's name. The title of the book was The Tyranny of Shoulds. Mother should be like this, a brother should be like this, a husband should be like this, a teacher should be like this, I should be like this, you should be like this. Should be, should be, should be. So the author of that partly humorous book wrote that the notions of should practically becomes a tyrant. The notions of should tyrannize over us. I don't want to go far away from the main topic. Here, in this context of passive awareness, there is an extraordinary piece of teaching. And what is so extraordinary about it? Ordinarily, we want to be active. We envy somebody else who is active. We feel sad that we are not so active. But if we have true wisdom, we should not be making a problem of not being active, not being energetic, etc. I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, have heard of an expression, graceful aging. It's so easy to talk about graceful aging, but hardly anyone among us can really be so graceful about our hair turning gray, wrinkles forming on the forehead, and our taking a little time to get up and get going, etc. So, one thing it is to believe that we must be active, and let there be no mistake. Being active has its place. Being active has its charm. We need some people, at least in every group, every organization, who need to be active. But we have made a god out of activity. Be active, do something, or at least pretend to be doing something so that others accept you. Don't stand like that, like a buffoon, and so on and so forth. We have made a big problem of being active physically or mentally or any other way. I can go on and on about the importance that majority of us give to being active. Once more, with due respect to being active, which has a certain place, it doesn't deserve all that importance, all that attention that we give to it. Being active doesn't deserve so much of special place. In higher teachings, and the higher teachings are not related to getting something done in day-to-day life, but the higher teachings are related to finding peace, finding harmony, finding a state of no conflict. If you and I want to be at peace with ourselves, we must let go of excessive attachment to activity, being active, being energetic, talking always, moving always, etc. We must let go of the false attachment to such things. And in contrast, this evening we have a topic before us, place of or understanding passive awareness. A lot of people who have not got it properly would be averse to this idea. Passive awareness? Oh no, I don't want to be passive. Till my last breath, I want to be active, they say. They got it wrong. Passive awareness has to be appreciated at a certain level, and therefore we are here to explore this whole teaching of passive awareness. Awareness itself is a daunting topic. Awareness itself is a challenging theme. And then comes this adjective, passive awareness. No wonder many students of these teachings find themselves driven to a wall. I need to be aware and I am supposed to be passive. That means I should not do anything. Oops. What does it mean? In fact, it perhaps would not be irrelevant to bring in an analogy here. Talk about darkness. In many contexts, darkness is not a good thing. But now, bringing a little physics into the picture, all of us know that the visible light that our eyes can recognize falls in seven frequencies, the highest being violet and the lowest being red. Violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, and red. You and I have memorized this and passed many examinations, whether we like the subject of optics or not. We did pass exams, got degrees, and whatever. Violet is the highest frequency in the visible spectrum of light. Red is the lowest frequency. Interestingly, go above violet, there are electromagnetic frequencies above also, plenty of them, almost endlessly. And go below the frequency of red, infrared and further down, ultraviolet and further up. All of that is darkness to human eyes. Our eyes cannot make out anything out of frequencies above violet. They are mere darkness. And they can't make head or tail of frequencies below red because it is darkness. Infrared cannot be recognized by our eyes. There are devices which recognize infrared. Likewise, there are devices which respond to ultraviolet and so on. But enough of physics now. Just as frequencies above violet also are darkness, frequencies below red also are darkness. Here, as connected to this evening's topic, passivity could be a lower state of our consciousness where we are directionless, we are lost, we are confused, we are stuck with something vulgar, something very mundane, something very, transient, something of little value. Then also we are passive and we might be wasting time. Though I must hasten to add, we must never judge anybody who is sitting quietly as really wasting time. Who knows? That lady, that man could be, after a while, coming out with something wonderful that blesses her and blesses the rest of the people also. So we are not here to judge anybody, but it is true that when there is a whole lot of disorder in us, and I may dare say, if our brain is damaged, then also we would go into some passivity. There will be so many contradictions in our life, and we would not be doing what we ourselves promised to do. For the sake of some glitter or glamour, we occupy some seat, we take a designation, we assume some position, and would not be doing anything at all. That's a terrible state of affairs. That kind of passivity, you become the secretary, you become the director, you become the captain, you become the CEO, but you are not doing what is expected of you, or leave alone what others expect of you. You are not doing what you yourself promised in a terrific speech at the commencement of your role. That kind of passivity, not being active, is terrible. But we are talking about passivity, which is like in the analogy, light of frequencies above violet. It's an analogy only. But what it means is, though both are darkness, the darkness of ultraviolet and above, and the darkness of infrared and below, in terms of frequencies, are two different domains. Likewise, now comes the crux of the matter. When you and I understand the limitation of thought, you and I understand the limitations of analysis, you and I understand seriously the sad limitations of judgmentalism, or putting everything in two camps, good and bad, right and wrong, desirable and undesirable, etc. Our mind is very active in putting things into two camps. We are very interested generally in labeling. He is good, she is bad. This president is good, that president is bad. This prime minister is good, that prime minister is bad. And there is a saying, those who kill by the sword die also by the sword. So when we judge Tom, Dick, and Harry, the same mind invariably will judge ourselves too. Today we judge somebody and made a face criticizing her. The same mind tomorrow will judge us, will label us, and we have to feel bad about how we are, who we are, what we are. So, is there a way of being where we do not judge? We look at things but do not jump to a conclusion. Not jumping to a conclusion, not getting down to activity for just the pleasure of activity and so on, brings to the forefront this idea of passivity. In his writings, Krishnaji says at a certain place, to solve a problem, You cannot do it on its own level. A problem is never solved on its own level. Being complex is referring to our psychological problems. It must be understood in its total process. Such sentences in the teachings are very profound. If you are trying to understand a problem partially, okay, go on the high ride of thinking, thought, analysis, synthesis, etc. But not part. You want to understand a problem in a whole, as a whole, right? So then you have a big problem. To understand a problem in its entirety, you cannot use thought as the tool because the problem is on the same level as thought, and you need to go to a higher level, so to say, to understand the problem. I was glancing at some portions of Krishnaji's teachings this afternoon where he talks about awareness. And one of the chapters, probably in the commentaries on living, he talks about somebody, a very elderly man who had come to meet him. And the man had been quite accomplished in certain contexts. But apparently, the man had not overcome yet the so called problem of sexuality and was struggling with it. Krishnaji describes the conflict, the commotion, the inner turmoil, the agitations, guilt, shame, and so on and so forth that the old man was going through. And then Krishnaji doesn't take it further specifically. In some of the essays, or which are probably, yeah, either he wrote or he spoke, uh, you find Krishnaji talks about some context, the human context or the context of environment, nature, whatever. Then, having said about those in two paragraphs, in the third paragraph, he completely changes gear. He doesn't continue to talk about what he described in the first and second paragraph. Apparently, he doesn't continue. But on a deeper level, he is very much continuing. Like in this context of an old man who was struggling with sexuality, Krishnamurti suddenly changes gear, goes to a different gear, different plane, goes to another level and talks about how no matter what it is, sexuality or wealth or power or name or fame or some other, you know, human life is beset with many problems. No matter what the problem is, there is need for understanding the problem in its totality. And that's where he says, for the resolution of the problem, meaning in totality, there must be this awareness, not some quick thinking, not some clever thinking. These are my words, of course. Krishnaji says there must be this awareness, this passive alertness. You may wonder what under the sun passive alertness can do. And in Krishnaji's quote, which I am placing before you, it goes, passive awareness or passive alertness reveals its total process. This is what sometimes we word as standing apart. Call it rising above, standing apart, be the witness, be just aware. Don't do something, don't fiddle with it, don't tinker with it. In electronics, we use the word tinkering. There is some circuit, there is some setup, and you tinker with it, and then you find out what will happen. And you may learn something, you may produce something, you may invent something, you may come out with something which other technicians had not found out by tinkering with the circuitry, etc. Sorry, don't tinker with thought. You will get into another web of confusions and complications. So, awareness, when you call it passive awareness, What does it mean? I quote again. Awareness is the silent and choiceless observation of what is. Choiceless observation of what is. What does it mean? Choiceless observation of what is means there is no interference of notions of what should be, what could have been, what would be, what I want to be, what shape things should take place in my choice. That's choice, right? Choiceless awareness. It's awareness, it's alertness, it's not going to sleep, it's not getting indifferent, it's not saying, who cares? And then you are irresponsible. You remain caring, you remain alert, you remain watchful, you are observant, but look at the uniqueness of this whole approach, if you are to call it an approach. Sometimes the word approach also is not acceptable here. I remember in Rajghat once Rajesh Dalal went on and on arguing that to say Krishnamurti's approach is not acceptable. I was very new in Rajghat, probably 2004 or 5, and I was a bit uncomfortable why he was objecting to calling the teachings Krishnamurti's approach. Now I understood. At that time also I sort of understood. Because once you say approach, really speaking, you already set a direction. You already take an angle of view. You already have positioned yourself in a certain place. And Rajesh Dalal was vehement in sharing with us a small group when he said, this is not an approach. If Krishnamurti also had another approach to issues, then his teachings or the teachings, he did not want to call them his teachings, the teachings would have become another school of thought, another philosophy, another system. Shankaras or Ramanujas or Madhvas or Kant or Immanuel Kant or Hegel or, the world over there are so many great names, hallowed names in those so-called halls of fame. Shall we put Krishnamurti also along with the framed pictures of many philosophers of the world? In some bookshops and some places they do. And that also is discussed at times in K dialogues. I have come across some very seasoned students of Krishnaji sometimes saying, we feel very uncomfortable when in bookshops they keep philosophies of A, B, C, and then there is a section of Krishnamurti, as though Krishnamurti is also one more philosopher like all of them. As you know very well, I'll not elaborate. Krishnamurti himself was very uncomfortable when anybody talked about him as a philosopher. He would say, sir, I'm not a philosopher. I don't have any body of teaching which I say is my view, my angle of seeing things, and so on. So these are all very important points. When you are choiceless, you don't have a particular angle of view. You don't see things from a Parsi angle of view or a Buddhist angle of view. You do not see things from a Japanese angle of view or an Australian angle of view. Can you cease to be any particular kind of person, Japanese or Australian, Hindu or Muslim, etc.? That is the challenge. So, a choiceless observation of what is. Like that old man, one last time, if I may refer to him, who was having a conflict with his sexuality. Probably, in all likelihood, this old man was constantly bringing how he should be at the age of 74, let's say, and alas, how he is at the age of 74. and imagining another man of the same age, imagining, he doesn't know how that other man really is. Look at that man, he seems to be free of any such conflict, whereas I celebrated my 74th birthday, last month, and I still have not overcome some of the base urges and vulgar urges and da da da. So labeling. On one hand, you label certain things as vulgar and bad and shameful and rotten and we are not sort of words. On the other hand, you have another set of things. This is how it should be. This is how the Buddha was. This is how Gandhi was. This is how and so on. So ideas of should be, ideas of what I am, ideas of what my neighbor is, what my own brother or sister or wife or husband is. Look at the mess that gets created in the human mind. Drop all the ideas. Let it be a urge, let it be a guilt, let it be shame, let it be some wonderment, whatever. Whatever it is, that is what is called what is. Do not imagine, oh, I sit and practice this choiceless awareness. The expression practicing choiceless awareness has its own problem. That's another issue. But someone visualizes, I think now I know what is choiceless awareness. And one begins to imagine peace. No, don't imagine peace. In choiceless awareness, there could be excruciating pain, if that is what is. There could be peace, there could be horror, there could be boredom, there could be loneliness, there could be, you name it. Anything coming from somewhere, from our subconscious. We are at a wonderful, fabulous, five-star restaurant in a beautiful, everything is so nice. At that time, something from the subconscious might arise, some memory could arise, and we might feel suicidal, let me tell you. Then what is that suicidal thought? But the teaching here is don't fight with it, don't resist it. In our Puranic stories, the hero meets with a demon. The demon has received a boon from Brahma or Vishnu or somebody, some god. What is the boon that demon has received? Anybody stands facing the demon loses half of his strength to the demon. Half the strength of the hero instantly goes to the demon. That's the boon, that's the vara that the demon had received. Interesting tales. Likewise, you know, so when I lost the thought, when you are struggling with thought, when you are in the midst of labels, when you say, I should not be having this thought, I should not be having this feeling, I should not be having this sentiment, I should not be having this, notion, oh my, and so on. I should be having great peace. Instead, I have this vulgar thought this morning, etc. You say. Then, rather than they're coming about some understanding, some kind of revelation, you sink into what they call in Hindi daldal, quicksand. In English, they call it quicksand. The more you try to get out of the quicksand, you go deeper into it, right? So it's a very, very interesting and scientifically beautiful proposition. Can you be aware of the suicidal thought, if that is what is, or a noble thought, or so called thought of how wonderful I am? Nowadays, I am so mature. I finally have grown a lot. Wow. Suppose there is such thought, can you just be choicelessly aware? Don't celebrate the so called noble thought. Don't mourn or moan over the so called negative thought. Krishnaji says, to be aware of problems where the self is dominant and to draw a line between problems where the self is not dominant and problems where the self is dominant can be very difficult. Let me read the exact words he says in one of the pieces in Commentaries on Living, I think, whatever series. Problems will always exist where the activities of the self are dominant. To be aware which are and which are not the activities of the self needs constant vigilance. There is vigilance involved in noticing this is an activity, mental activity, psychological activity where the self is dominant, and this is where the self is not dominant. This vigilance is not disciplined attention. That means it's not attention controlled, maneuvered, engineered, and so on. It is choiceless attention. I'm mixing the Krishnaji's words with my own words. Forgive me for that. You are welcome to read, the commentaries on living, where there is a whole piece, one article called awareness. That's where these things are given. The words by Krishnaji go like this: this vigilance is not disciplined attention, but an extensive awareness which is choiceless. Disciplined attention gives strength to the self. It becomes a substitute and a dependence. Awareness, on the other hand, is not self-induced, nor is it the outcome of practice. So these are gems of statements which throw a lot of precious light on the nature of this choiceless awareness. Lastly, Krishnaji comments how eager we are to solve our problems. That impatience, my words. The impatience, I must solve this problem. This weekend I'm going to whip it out. Some kind of unwillingness to examine things carefully. We search for an answer, a way out, a remedy. We never consider the problem itself, but with agitation and anxiety, grope for an answer. We grope. Where is the answer? I want it immediately. Sometimes for some silly reasons. I want to find the answer of this problem very much because there's some ice cream in the kitchen. I want to go eat it. Let me. So, in your eagerness to go eat the ice cream, you want to quickly find an answer to a psychological issue. So the problem is self-created, and we try to find an answer away from the self. We don't want to face the self. We don't want to notice the self. In this way, friends, I may go on and on. In fact, this is a long article where I highlighted a couple of portions. But to sum it up all, let me go back to what I picked up in the beginning. When you are choicelessly aware, that is when you are aware of the totality of your being without any reaction, that the conditioning, it is then that the conditioning goes totally, deeply, which is really the freedom from the self. To put in other words, this choiceless awareness is capable of exposing the confused self, the contradictory self, the riddle, the puzzle, right, which is making us suffer. That gets exposed. Its contours are really revealed. Therefore, the significance of choiceless awareness. Let me pause here and invite others to speak or ask questions.
Thank you very much, Chidanandji. Harshad sir, please unmute and say. Harshad sir, please.
Okay, are you able to hear my voice?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Uh, Thank you, Chidanandji. You have explained very well what you have said, that the problems created by thinking cannot be solved by thinking. And Krishnaji sometimes even says thinking cannot solve our problems of psychological nature. And sometimes Krishnaji says thinking is the problem. Anyway, I would like to, and another thing what Swamiji said, that silent, choiceless observation of what is. And that is a very, very good sentence. But let me tell you something about what is active awareness. So yesterday, I am here in Rajghat, Varanasi, and yesterday we went to Sarnath by car, and with me was a professor of philosophy in California University, and she was about 78 years old. She was very, very active. The moment our car started, she was observing everything what was outside, reading something written on cars, and what was she was observing, and she was asking many questions. Like when she saw that there were some Muslim women, they were covering their whole body with a black dress, what is called hijab. So she was asking question about why they are wearing such dress. And when she read somewhere on the vehicle, Mahila Vishwavidyalay, and she wanted to know what does it mean. And then she saw many vegetables being sold on the street, and she asked me question about what kind of vegetables are sold. And then a train passed by, and there was not much sound coming from the train, which was unusual. And so she asked why the train is so quiet. And so her mind was very active. And I told her that the most of the questions she asked can be found on Google, like why Muslim women they wear black dress, completely cover them. If we ask Google, most of these questions are answered. But if you ask Google, tell me what is happening in my mind, then the Google will not be able to tell anything, because each of us, there is so much going on and continuously changing our thoughts and feelings, and the Google cannot tell us. So the only way, if we want to really understand ourselves or our problems of like anger or fear or jealousy or conflict, all these problems are created by thinking. And if we want to really want to understand what is behind it, we have to go right at the source where these problems are created. And since our problems of this psychological nature is coming from thinking, so one has to look at the beginning of a thought. And for that, it is not easy because our mind is mostly occupied going round and round from one thought to the another thought, and we never really sense that there is our thought is changing direction. But when we become very curious to look at our own mind, how do we do it? It seems to me that if we want to observe what is or whatever is happening in our mind, we need to be extremely curious, very silent, very attentive, very honest, not escaping from what we see if it is unpleasant. So to see the thinking, one needs to come out from thinking in this state, which is not thinking and feeling. Because as long as we are thinking, we are moving on the plane of thinking and feeling. And this is like a flat plane. When we are in the flat plane of thinking and feeling, we cannot see the whole of it. We cannot see the beginning of it. We go round and round on the surface. But when we come out from the surface in the third dimension above the surface, then we can really see how these thoughts are forming within us. And that awareness, which is a kind of a silent looking, in that there are no thinking doesn't create problem. When the thinking is seen as it is, when there is no this self or ego coming out from thinking and directing all our action, when there is no self which is created by thinking, that means when there is a silent observation of what is, how the thoughts and feelings are unfolding, then there are no problems. Even thinking is not a problem in that state of awareness. But when that awareness is not there, then thinking multiplies and creates many, many problems. So I do not agree with Krishnaji when he says thinking is the problem. Yes, thinking is the problem when there is no awareness, this choiceless passive awareness or a silent looking. In that, even thoughts can come and go. There is no problem, but only when this awareness goes away and we are then moving in thinking and feeling, then it multiplies and creates problem. So you can also say that awareness is like a light in which all the problems created by thinking can be seen very, very clearly at its root. And all this explanation of all this, we are using too many words. But when it becomes very real in our life, this choiceless awareness, silent looking, then it is a wonderful state. It is a real state of freedom in which thoughts and feelings can move very harmoniously. One can even create something beautiful like a poem or a beautiful writing. And it seems to me that Krishnamurti's writings or speaking is coming from that kind of awareness in which there is no effort involved. So it is an effortless, choiceless, silent, or passive awareness which reveals everything clearly what is happening in our mind. So when such a thing happens, we don't need to go to any teacher. We don't even need to read any book to understand. because it is not really understanding verbally, but seeing non-verbally. And when such a thing happens, then when we read Krishnamurti, we can say, yes, that what Krishnamurti says is very obvious. But if we don't have that state of choiceless, effortless awareness, then we make an effort to understand Krishnamurti, and then it becomes very complicated. So Krishnamurti teachings cannot be understood by the thinking, logical, intellectual mind. And when we do it, it may create more problems, more conflict. And because sometimes Krishnamurti may say one thing at one moment, and then in another talk, he may say something opposite. So if you are just following the words and the concepts coming out from Krishnamurti, then it may lead to more conflict, more problems, more questions. And so I feel that many people were asking the same questions for many, many years, and they were listening to Krishnamurti for many, many years. But I feel that one doesn't need to listen to Krishnamurti for many years. When we really experiment with what Krishnamurti is saying, we really feel this non-verbal, choiceless, passive awareness. And in that, we begin to look at our own problems when there is a fear arising or anger arising. And when that awareness looks at it and the problems get dissolved. So in this awareness, all the problems created by thinking are dissolved because they are seen at its root. And that is why Krishnaji says perception is the action. So our problem is not thinking, not feeling, but this perception, the insight, or this passive awareness, which can see everything very, very clearly as it is forming. So it is like reading the book of our own life as it is being written. And that is a wonderful state to be in. And in that state, we can look at the trees, we can look at human beings, we can listen to people, and all actions become very effortless too. Even studying some subject can become also very interesting, very enjoyable in this state of uh, passive awareness where the mind is relaxed, very peaceful. And if there is any conflict coming, that conflict can be observed in the state of awareness. So this is something, a dynamic thing, and one has to work with oneself, being silent initially, and very, very curious, very attentive. And I can give many metaphors about thinking and awareness, but I don't want to do it now. But later on, if something comes, I can explain it. But explanation is not important. Only seeing clearly, non-verbally, passively. Okay, I have finished. Thank you very much.
Prasad sir, please unmute and say. Prasad sir.
Sir, I am raising a personal question, not strictly on the subject. After what Swamiji has said and Harshadji has said, there is little to be said on the subject as such. My question relates to the life of Rajesh Dalalji. We know Rajesh Dalalji was very emphatic about Krishnaji, very enthusiastic and all that. But I think, that is what I understand, he died of unrecognized, untreated diabetes. A person who is so aware of everything, how did he fail in noticing his own disease? Any normal fellow would take some care of his diabetes. How come a person who is so enthusiastic about Krishnaji and all that, how he failed in getting proper treatment? Not only him, I don't know, Mr. Narayan also was also very enthusiastic and all that, because I met him also. Both these people, I met both of them. How they failed in noticing something important about themselves. This is my question, sir, because you people know them more intimately. I hope you don't mind my raising this question. You don't mind giving an answer. Thank you.
Chidanandji will answer.
You want me to answer the question by Prasadji?
Yeah.
It's rather difficult to be judgmental on people. And diabetes, all said and done, is quite a complex matter. It's possible that Rajesh ji followed the advice of this doctor, that doctor maybe changed several times, but did not pursue a particular treatment in consistency. And many times, lot of understanding of certain higher teachings does not necessarily give some practical wisdom. One takes things a little lightly. Sometimes, in the inspiration by some high teachings, one says, well, I am not too keen to live long. What life, what death, and so on. It should not be. Maybe somebody else also should speak in this matter. But yeah, just like, one tends to be rather negligent about money, negligent about clothes to wear, etc. Wear something and just go. So possibly Rajesh ji did not give enough importance to proper care of himself. That's possible. Though I moved fairly closely with him for many years, I don't know about this matter. But I did notice that he was not very strict with his own diet and so on. For a few days, he would go for some diet. Then we see him taking regular food again. So I think he was not very consistent, staying on the right track as advised by any particular doctor. Changing things, changing systems, etc. Maybe rather difficult. Maybe Harshad ji knew Rajesh better, the longer association.
Harshad sir, please.
Yeah. Yes. May I say?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Yes, I knew Rajesh from 1980 to 1985. He was at Rishi Valley and I was also at Rishi Valley. And we both joined almost at the same time, Rishi Valley, in 1980. And we had many dialogues with each other, one-to-one, very challenging. And I found that he was very passionate about speaking, about asking questions, and he used to make people think a lot. But I would say that he was still struggling, and he was very honest in telling me that there was no freedom. And also in the presence of Krishnamurti, also he, in one dialogue, when many teachers were there, and Rajesh was almost crying and said, what can I do? How can I be really free? And then Rajesh asked Krishnaji, should I cry? And Krishnaji said, yes. Then Rajesh said, I have cried also. So Rajesh tried very, very hard to be free, but I don't think that that kind of desire to be free can make a person free. One has to be very silent and look at what is happening. It is not the question of asking too many questions. I never asked questions, but Krishnaji asked many questions. I looked at those in kind of a silent from the very beginning, almost 1970s. So it really began to change my life, I would say. And Rajesh was challenging me many times and say, are you free? Then I would say, in the present moment, I am free, but I cannot tell that what will happen in the future. So I think the teachings are also about the present moment. We don't know what will happen. Rajesh probably did not know that he would have diabetes. He had diabetes and he was eating special. At least I saw him Rajghat when we met last time, and he was eating probably more eating. He was not very careful about eating. He was given special food, and he was not taking medicine because he thought that maybe this philosophy can, the mind can cure the disease, but he was not able to cure diabetes, and one needs to take care, I feel. So he was very passionate, and in 1995, he told me that something had really changed in his life. He said the seed which Krishnaji had planted, it had bloomed. And I could see that there was a change in Rajesh. He was not so passionate, he was listening. And I could feel that there was some change, but the health, I think he should have taken better care. He should have gone to doctor and eat less, reduce weight. At one time, he had gone to a naturopathy clinic in Bangalore, and when he came out, he was very healthy. But then he could not follow that kind of discipline. So finally, yeah, I feel very sorry that he died quite young at the age of 60 or around that. So that is what I have to say. So it is not the question of being very passionate, but passionate in looking silently. That helps more than too much verbal. I found Rajesh was too much talking too much unnecessarily. For hours, he could go on talking without getting tired. But that is not necessary, I think. Too many words is an indication that there is no silence. Okay, I have finished.
Pradeep Verma, I request you to say something about diabetes. That's very.
I am living with diabetes for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
30 years. So that is not it's a lifestyle disease. So active, I don't know when it is active awareness, when passive awareness, but I am aware of it. And moreover, awareness for me is deeply associated with life as such. By having something in mind about different words, we can say it is instinctive awareness and simply be out of that. No, it is always deeply associated with life, always. Now it's a question of what is the purpose. This is survival is the ultimate thing throughout anybody's life. The only thing, the meaning of survival becomes different. I can survive only with 5 cars. I can survive with all go on adding these things. So that survival, but it is always the survival, and awareness associated with that. For me, awareness is an ever active light that reflects everything. So even when I had not read Krishnamurti or anybody of that type, all these things are later developments in my career. So I knew it And I continue to be the same idea that it is associated with life. Wherever life is there, awareness is there. We may say man is more aware or something like, go on comparing this life with that life, but it is there associated with life. Then Nisargadatta Maharaj beautifully said something almost same. Awareness is not of the mind or the body. It is the nature. It is the nature. Awareness is ever there. Awareness is ever there. And it need not be realized. Open the shutters of the mind and it will be flooded with light. Nisargadatta Maharaj. So, the passive awareness can be simply understood as awareness without activity of the self, as everybody almost has said it. Activity of the self, and self, we all know about what self, how it is formed and what relationship it has with time and all those things past and then a number of things, knowledge and everything. So without that, if it is not interfering, and I don't say that choiceless awareness is another extreme we have been emphasizing on, because Krishnamurti said like this. So choiceless awareness, initially for me, it is choiceless. Then suddenly it enters into the self and says, I have seen it yesterday also. Is it the same? Then we start all sorts of comparisons and etc. So because passive is one polarity, you see, mind loves to discuss awareness as words in the world of duality and gets energized to become active for the next discussion. This is what is happening. You see, mind breathes through duality and continues like this, and that is what you see. Even now, suppose that what is now is this happening through you. Harshadji talked about that professor from California, that old lady. She saw something and questioned. So seeing was first and the inquiry was next. We can't shove it off like this, that look, you can see it in Google, that location will not be there in the Google. It may be there, but it will be unnecessary. We are giving that answer that it is not. The query started with seeing only. That is what is for her. It was for her that. For her, it was awareness of what is. So I don't question her. I can't brush it as something. Now something, if I brush it like that, these can be found in JK's literature, everything. Can I brush it like that? As if you can see Google or see JK's full, complete work of JK. So it is not that. So this is another thing is, now if you take a Western view, Jaggi Vasudev says another beautiful thing. Only in unawareness you are mortal. In awareness you are immortal. Jaggi Vasudev. So this is. Then Abraham Maslow, the famous man, realization, self-realization. What is necessary to change a person is to change his awareness of himself. Now you see another very beautiful and complicated sentence as well. To change his awareness, as if somebody else is changing his awareness. So that was, then another one is, Phil McGraw, another person, he says, awareness without action is worthless. So these are the different views about awareness, that we can't classify awareness like this. We can't go on classifying things like this, where there is no ultimate in awareness. nobody can say that this is the ultimate awareness. Awareness is always associated. This is what I feel, sir. Enough time you have given me. Thank you very much. Anything from Chidanandji, I'll be happy to get his response.
Chidanandji, are you
Yeah.
still?
Yeah, I am
Please.
here for a couple of more minutes, and yeah, certainly Pradeep ji's question. It was nice to hear from him several quotes in context of awareness. But I want to make a comment on one of the quotes: "Awareness without action is worthless." That takes the whole matter to a different plane. So, in the
Yes.
matter of being free from conflict, etc., awareness without action is quite valid. But
Yes.
suppose awareness of some social problem, etc., you are aware, but you don't do anything. That's very bad. So, so the word awareness can be used on various levels.
Yes.
So when there is awareness of certain inner conflicts about our beliefs, our values, our hurt, certain insecurity, etc., there the action is not important. But if it's awareness of, my son is into drugs and I have come to know, and I'm just aware and just keep quiet, that's worthless. I must talk to my son, oh dear, some way. So there are a number of things. When we are aware of those problems, we must act.
Yes.
But they are generally of certain grosser nature, which is part of life. Food is part of life. We can't say food is gross. And nowadays, I have got to higher levels of consciousness. I eat whatever is placed in front of me. I can't say, we have to take right food, right exercise, all those. Those things, action is required. But suppose there is a certain inferiority complex in me. There is not much about doing something, though some things can be done which can have some little benefit. But to solve the problem of a certain complex, one has to learn to, as Harshadji highlighted, one has to learn to sit silent, one has to speak less, one has to watch oneself more. I should not catch hold of a good friend like Pradeep Verma and bore him with my problem of some complex, Then I had a complex, now he will also get some complex. Whereas I may share some thoughts with Pradeep,
Yes.
saying, look, in spite of all my philosophical wisdom, Pradeep ji, देखिए, मेरा को ये थोड़ा डर है, ये थोड़ा चिंता है, ये परेशानी होती है. I can, okay, half an hour, 20 minutes. Later on, I should say, Pradeep ji, let us part, and I should sit quietly. We should balance, action and sitting quietly. Those of us who learn a lot of philosophy will be ending up nowhere unless we learn to sit quietly for some time here and there, go for solitary walks, go through some natural surroundings and so on. In a way, I envy Harshadji. He is going from one K center to another. I can imagine having beautiful walks through the K trail in Rajghat. I wish I could join him. So thank you for saying that. But I think that statement, awareness without action is worthless, takes the topic to a little
Different
grosser level of life, which also is part of life. It's not irrelevant. Thank you.
I may say something, sir.
Ravi Kaushal, generally you ask a question in chat box. This time you have raised a hand. You are most welcome.
Okay.
Pradeep, I will take you later on.
We
Generally makes a remark in chat box. This time he has raised a hand. Let him ask the question first.
May I say something?
Yes,
Yeah, please.
Yeah. This Pradeep ji talked about awareness is associated with life. Yes, primary awareness. Even birds and animals and insects, they have awareness for survival. But we are talking about a different kind of awareness in human beings, awareness of thoughts and feelings. And this awareness is not awakened even in many highly intellectual people. And so they, in spite of doing a very good work in science or other fields, they are not free from ambition, jealousy, loneliness, conflict with other people. So what Krishnaji is talking about, this choiceless awareness, is the choiceless awareness of thinking and feeling which are creating problems in our life with other human beings and with environment. So that awareness is very rare actually. But when it is awakened in human beings, then life really changes. Then there is a real clarity of whatever is happening. One can see it very clearly. A person is getting angry, can see the anger arising. And if there is a conflict, one can see that conflict is arising. So that awareness is like a light which illuminates everything, and it dissolves the problem which created by thinking and feeling. So we are not talking about primary awareness, which even insects and birds and animals for survival they have. So this is what I have want to clarify it. That awareness is actually or intelligence. You can use word insight or perception or many words. Is seeing clearly our own thinking and feeling. And then when such a thing happens, our looking outward also changes in a different way. We no longer look at the tree in the same way we were looking when our mind was full of thinking. So there is a different way of looking even at the outside object. And that is why Krishnaji was asking, how do you look at a tree? How do you look at the face of your friend or husband or wife? So behind such questioning, Krishnamurti was saying that there is a different way of looking, a non-verbal, a very fresh. So every time you look at the tree, you look as if it is, you are looking at for the first time. And in that there's a newness, freshness, and that happens when there is a silence in our mind. Our mind is not so much occupied with many problems. Everything, life becomes really wonderful, a blessing. Life is a blessing. Otherwise, life is generally, for most human beings, is a curse, and people don't like to be born again. But that happens probably only when a person becomes free, according to our tradition or Buddhism, that when you die and at that time you are really free, no problem, then there is no rebirth. Otherwise, sorrow is born again and again, and we go into birth and life cycle. And thinking also creates a cycle of conflict. Without awareness, thinking creates a lot of conflicts within oneself, even in intellectual people. Okay, I've finished.
Ravi, please come forward. Your consciousness has raised from chat box
Yes,
to
sir.
speaking. So please say.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Okay. I'm saying I've read that the topic is that understanding passive awareness. So I see that
Not hearing.
No voice is coming.
hello.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
now it is coming.
Okay. I'm saying, sir, this any understanding of passive awareness, is it actually awareness? This is my question. Whether any understanding of the awareness, can you say that you have understood the awareness?
Again, voice not coming. Your voice not coming.
He has raised a question. Please reply that. He is saying, please reply that. Please come forward.
Hello,
Harshad.
am I audible?
Yeah,
You are
you
audible
are.
until you becomes no audible. Something is
Yes,
wrong
sir.
with your audio.
Okay.
Hmm.
Actually, the phone is coming. That's why there's a disturbance, I think. So let me finish in a minute. I'm saying that whenever I see Harshad ji speaking about this awareness is fresh and look at the tree, I, I see that this is all the repetition of the mind. Matlab, maybe you have understood awareness quite well. Maybe you have seen in your life it's functioning, but the thing is that the mind is making it a concept, and then you are talking from that concept and you are repeating that in every video. Is this I think the understanding of the awareness, mind is making that into the product of the thought. Isn't it like that? But how can you
Yeah.
say that mind awareness is so fresh and all that? But whenever you talk about on awareness, whenever you talk on awareness through the understanding of the awareness, and through the understanding of the awareness, making you to go into the past experience, and then from that you are always repeating the things. Is it the way of the talking of the intelligence or of the awareness? Awareness, you cannot hold awareness. You cannot
Okay.
talk about the awareness is this or
Ravi, I
that.
got your point.
Okay.
Ravi, I
Okay.
got your
Structure
point.
the awareness.
Ravi,
The moment
Ravi,
you
I
structure
got
the awareness,
your
that is not awareness.
Ravi, all of
Okay.
us has got your point. Harshad sir are replying that. You
Yes.
got your
Let them answer. Let
Yes.
them answer.
Okay.
Let them
Okay,
answer.
Ravi. Listen, Ravi. When you listen, you are listening with the mind which has already known what I have said before. And so your listening is not fresh. Krishnaji talked about the
You're
same
right. You're right.
thing for
You're
60
right.
years. And people, when they listen, they could even predict what Krishnamurti would say. Because
But,
people have,
the K is not repeating. Never repeats his words.
yeah, listen. You
Please.
listen.
Please be calm.
Yeah. Ravi, that if your listening is very good, you will not bring the previous knowledge while listening, because it is not the matter of gathering concepts. People who have listened to Krishnamurti and then they make certain concepts out of what Krishnamurti is saying, and then they want to live according to that concept. It doesn't work, because you have to look at your own self very clearly and see whether what Krishnamurti says is true. And once you have listened, you don't need to listen, but you can still listen with clarity, with attention. So I feel, Ravi, that your problem is that you are listening with the previous knowledge. So you are not free in listening. And same way, you may not be free in seeing everything what you see around you. So when such a freedom comes, you will be able to listen the same words, but as if you are listening for the first time. Okay, I have finished. Yes, Prasad ji, you want to say something?
Sir, I have a little problem with that observation made by Dr. Pradeep Verma, saying that awareness which doesn't result in action is no awareness, or it is useless. I don't know. I see so much injustice all around. I am aware of it, but there is little I can do, practically speaking. For example, today, lot of poultry was being transported in a truck, and the poultry is, packed like potatoes in that truck. You feel it, you see it, you feel it, but there is very little you can do. I can't go and stop the transport or talk with that guy or anything like that. So similar injustices we have all around us. And apart from being aware of it, and the only action that can take place is, yes, I should not do that. To that extent, action can be there, if you call that action. So, very limited, in a limited way, the action is only to the extent of resolving for yourself. For example, war is there. Krishnaji gives that example of war. You are the cause of war because it is your hatred that snowballs into war ultimately. To that extent, yes, I can be free of my hatred of any community or anything like that. But there is very little we can do to stop this Ukraine war, let us say. That's all, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anand sir, the last speaker will be Anand sir. 1 minute is left. Please be brief. Anand sir, please
What
be
about me,
brief.
sir? What about me?
Please, sir, you are left over.
Okay.
Left is left. Thank you.
All right.
You have to come first.
Yes, sir.
Please,
Sir, I mean, we have been, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah,
Yes.
we are able.
We have been talking about passive awareness or effortless awareness. What is essential in this passive awareness is the sensitivity. There is an heightened sensitivity. Just now the speaker said we saw the chicken being transported. Okay, I may feel, I may be sentimental, but I may sensitive to what is happening. Now, in that sensitivity, there perception, action. When there's a perception, there's an action. It's not that to stop the van or I'll go and fight with the person or whatever it is. I mean, can I see that my consumption of that, eating eggs or whatever meat, is a reason for that? Can I observe that is the question? Then again, when you're talking about effortless awareness, now out of this, I'm quoting K here. Out of this effortless awareness, I mean, there is attention, which leads to perception and action. So when we're talking about action, I was very active with it. That is not K is talking about. There's an action when there's a perception. That's all there is. Now, for me, action means something I have to do physical. I don't think that is the case. As far, I mean, I can understand within quotes what K is talking about. See, I see something beautiful, something ugly on the road. The moment I say it should not be ugly, I'm back to my conditioning. Well, the conditioning, what is beautiful, what is ugly. So, can they, if there is a sensitivity, out of that sensitivity, I mean, there is an understanding of what it is. That's all. Understanding within quotes, I'm saying. The moment I say it should not be there, I should do something about it, I'm back to my conditioning. Then I say, yes, I've done the right thing, I've acted upon. So when K is talking again, we say it is K. And K says, don't ever try to understand me. He says, you please try and understand yourself. But most of the time, we keep repeating the same thing, that we are trying to understand him. And what K has also said many a times, it sounds exactly the opposite, but it's in a different context. I need to remain with it. The moment I say he's speaking something opposite to what he spoke the other day, I'm back to my condition. So it's very essential to observe that I don't remain with what is. I don't remain with those words. Can I see that I'm always interpreting? That is more essential. Then talking about the other things, how to be aware and how to be sensitive and all those things. I mean, it is not that. Again, I'm back to my conditioning. Can I see that I'm not aware? Can I see that I come to conclusions? Can I see that I always, go to the opposite, or I interpret that? Can I observe that is the question, sir. For that observation, one has to be really sensitive. What K is talking about, the heightened sensitive. Out of this negation, out of the negation, this creation. That is what he says within quotes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anand. Modak, please end it now. It is already 7:33.